Welcome to COVID Tinted Glasses. I'm Georgina, and joining me today is Thessa Plevier, digital marketeer, traveller and surfer who lives in Amsterdam. Welcome, Thessa.
Thank you, Georgina. Nice to speak to you again after all those years.
Yes, so the last time we met was New Year's Eve in Morocco, in Tagazout, and we had a fantastic surfing holiday. But can you just tell everyone about what you do and a bit more about yourself, really?
Well, I'm Thessa. I live in Amsterdam. I'm Dutch. I'm actually, my mom's English, so I do have some English heritage, but it's very kind of far away. I studied psychology. I work as a marketeer right now, mostly doing online campaigning for sustainable products. It's beautiful weather right now. You're looking, or if you're watching, at the back of my garden, which I'm very happy to have in those lockdown times that we had recently. My free time I have basically spent, because everything was closed, and I generally do love running, so I like running a lot. Traveling was a little bit more difficult recently, but as Georgina and me met on a holiday surfing, and I recently also escaped on a little bit of a lockdown holiday to Tenerife. So there I went surfing as well, because that's how I kind of try to survive the lockdown life, working from home for 15 months or longer by now. And that's what I do in my free time. And I am honored to be invited to this podcast, and I'm curious to chat again about Tagazout and defrost and old surfing times. And Morocco will be long closed, but hopefully we can go somewhere again this summer.
Yeah, exactly. So, interestingly, starting off in Morocco, because I had a yoga teacher that I follow. She was stuck in Morocco for months when lockdown kind of happened, which at first I think we were all very jealous of, because the scenery was fantastic in the villa. And that's really why when I was like, I have to speak to Thessa, because I was very jealous to see you were surfing in Tenerife in lockdown. So, tell us a bit more about the regulations in the Netherlands, because I think they are very different to the UK.
Well, at the moment, a lot of things changed as per last weekend, because of the 5th of June. It changed back from being kind of all closed to open again, restaurants open again, bars open again. Before this, terraces could be opened. But like 6 weeks ago, we still had an evening clock, which we had to be inside at like 9 p.m. or 10 p.m. at a certain point. And that started the lockdown started in December. Restaurants closed last year, October. So we have been kind of confined to our homes for a very long period. I already worked from home for a very long time, and I talked to a screen all day. So interaction with people was very limited. And we didn't know when it would be finished. So at a certain point, we had an evening clock. Social life was kind of going, being very limited. And as I don't have a car because I live in a city, you couldn't also drive to other cities. And in Amsterdam, there's a lot of control on the street, or there used to be. And they kind of try to catch you just before the evening clock and giving you a fine. So I was kind of feeling locked up, literally. And I kept myself to the regulations, not because some people might have said, why do you go there? It's not permitted. Well, it wasn't advised. But at a certain point, I was kind of like, I have to take care of myself as well. And working from home all the time, I live in a nice house in Amsterdam. I've got a garden, but in winter, it was shitty weather all the time. So if I had daylight in the time, that would be kind of a nice thing to do. And seeing one other person, because you were allowed one visitor, would be, the highlight of a day sometime, or doing a run with a friend or something. But it was all becoming very, how would I say, kind of the groundhog day, every day the same. And at a certain point, the whole lockdown was prolonged another 3 weeks, and that was like end of March or half of March or something. And then I was like, this was going to last for, 5 weeks in the beginning. And Spain was open, so that meant you could get in. You had to do all your testing and stuff, so commercial tests. It was not free, of course. And I did quarantine when I got back to the Netherlands, so I stayed in for 5 days, and then I could get a test. But in Spain, everything was open. So you could, in Tenerife, I'd never been there, but they have, in the west of the island, they have nice surf waves. And it was all empty, kind of, because all the tourists stayed away. Some people, there were like a few digital nomads in the surf house where I stayed. And they were like, they got up at 7, started working early. I had holiday, so I had all day off. And they just took their surfboards in the end of the afternoon and went to the sea. It was like a whole new way of, inviting people to stay over at the Canaries during winter. And you could sit on a terrace, even though you had to wear a face mask in the street, which is kind of annoying. But in warmth, you get like what I call maskne instead of acne. You get like, I haven't had acne since I was like 17, but you have like irritation because of the heat, and it starts rashing and it gets irritating. So
yeah,
that was kind of the only downside. But you could go out to dinner. I hadn't been, I like cooking, but somebody serving you a coffee and a lunch is worth, I don't know, it's priceless when you haven't had that experience for such a long time. And just being able to go to a beach, rent a board and go into the sea felt like freedom. So when I came back, it was 25 degrees when I left. And when I came back, it hailed here. It was 5 degrees Celsius. And we had another 2 months, which probably in the UK as well, where it was extremely cold, lots of rain, and virtually.
So it was March. Was it March that you went to Tenerife?
End of March. Yeah, end of March. Yeah. And I came back just after Easter. So on the 8th or 9th of April.
So to be honest, I didn't realize how strict the regulations were in Amsterdam. So the night clock is basically a curfew. Yes.
Yeah,
so
it's a curfew.
And there are police or people patrolling to make sure you get back in time.
And you get a fine of 95 euros if you don't, there used to be like this stream of people bicycling home at 8:45, like all going like this to be on time, because you would have, and they did, I think they fined around, if you live in a small village, there are like 2 officers being able to patrol the whole village. But and I live in a city where there's lots of bridges, so they used to kind of spread out of the bridge, and everybody who was
laughing, but this is just, I've now got this real vision of, I've been to Amsterdam a few times, one of which was a Orange Day parade or Queen's Day. But I remember that the friend I had, she had 2 bicycles stashed in different places to come back at different times. So I can envisage, at 8:45, everyone just cycling like crazy, trying to get back in the door. So, but at that point, there were no restaurants. Bars were open outside. No bars. Open.
Bars opened at outside. The terraces opened at the day the evening clock was finished, and that was on the 28th of April.
Wow. So basically, Amsterdam was empty from about 8:30 till what time you were allowed out again?
4:30 in the morning. But that's not the time I'm usually outside, and definitely not in winter.
No.
But so basically, and I start working at around 9, then I have my first meetings. And when it gets dark at 5, virtually you have no daylight if it's winter. No. So it's life got I used to. Running used to mean freedom to me, because I could meet a friend for sport. You were allowed one person, one body to do running with at 1.5 meters distance. Now we're allowed to do sports again. Yesterday I ran with my running crew again. And we're allowed to run with 30 people, I believe in total it is. But that just happened as per end of May or something. We have phase, like in the UK, there's like phases, and you're ahead of us, I think, with a few weeks, months, I don't know. I just got my first vaccination 2 days ago. So that's, they're going down in age-wise now. So pretty soon everybody will have had their first vaccination. But I think in the UK they're way further, and your numbers are, I don't know, plummeting. So that's good.
Well, yes, but I don't think we'll be opening up quite so soon. But I think you're right. I think that the big difference is that you were allowed to travel to Spain, whereas we have this light thing, which only came about, quite recently. But so green, you can go, you don't have to quarantine. Amber, you shouldn't go, but you can go, but you shouldn't go, but you can go. Yeah. It's a bit strange, and the red is no go. But the problem was, I think we all felt when I saw the picture of you in Tenerife, I have to be honest, I hadn't realised that you had curfew. And actually, you probably had a worse time than us at that time, because at least we didn't actually have curfew. But
you weren't allowed any visitors. I've got a friend who lives in London. I met him on a trip in South Africa, and I've been Skyping with him sometimes or FaceTime. And he lives alone. He lived alone, and he couldn't see anybody. And
no,
I must say, we were allowed one visitor, which in most cases I did respect. So that was a big difference. I think I was allowed to see somebody.
Yes.
And in most cases, for example, with the evening clock, I started having new habits. I've got friends who live in The Hague, so that's away by train. I don't have a car. So that's away by train. That's like 50 minutes or something. So what I used to do is going there for dinner, but I stayed over in their extra sleeping room, and then we played games, etc. Because I couldn't go there and go back on the same evening, because then you have a visit of like what, half an hour, 1 hour.
Yeah.
So that's how I try to solve things. But I think.
And would you say you're closer to these friends now because you've done that rather than rushing to meet them?
Well, normally I would have not been part of their daily life in that sense. They've got a 1-year-old kid, for example, and he wakes up in the morning very early. I see her husband in pajamas. I never seen her husband in pajamas before. So I must say that's a different thing. And of course, with her, last year she had a baby during the lockdown.
Yes.
Or when it all started in the end of February, and we had kind of how do you say, alternative meeting actually at the beach, because you were not allowed, or everybody said no visitors at that time. People did visit a little bit, but she had just a little baby. But what we started kind of new traditions, I don't know, but we started getting our race cycles out and go cycling together at a certain point. I've got a race cycle. I sometimes used it, but I have extensively used it last year.
Yeah.
And now the weather was a little bit more shitty, so sorry for that word. I used it a little bit less, but you try to kind of find the loopholes, I wouldn't say, but the activities that give you joy and that you can still do. In my case, that was mainly walking, cycling, and running. Sunshine in Tenerife kept me, being able to hold on another 6 weeks of bad weather afterwards.
So yes, you were saying that you just try to do anything that kind of gave you a bit of joy. So being outside, bicycling, finding ways around things to make it work for you. I mean, I certainly did that as well. I had a friend who I used to meet running at the beginning of lockdown. But I agree. A lot of people in London really, I was quite surprised, really did follow the rules, and they didn't see anyone else. They stayed in. So some people went to live with other people at that time to kind of get through the initial period. I mean, I certainly, for 6 weeks, I just turned left outside my house, ran to the park, ran round and came back. But I was also working quite hard as well at the time. So that was really, really, really tricky. So Tenerife gave you the sunshine and the surf. Such a healing thing, because I've just been surfing last weekend as well, which was amazing in the
nice.
UK.
Yeah, I was just about to ask you, do you still surf? Because, Thessas might be a one-time experience, but I don't know.
No. I got all the gear, but I'm still as rubbish as I was in Tagazoot. But
I do surfing for fun. My level, I used to surf for the first time when I was 15. I still have a soft top, a big board. I've tried the heavy boards once, but still in the white water. Sometimes I try green wave. So it's basically more about the fun than about my experience making me one of those Hawaii. Camille, my French friend that I met in surf camp in Spain actually a few years ago. She was the one I was with in Defrost, and she always sends me movies about girls, taking these big Hawaiian waves in tubes and stuff, and I'm always like, haha, maybe when we're old.
Yeah, it's something to work towards, isn't it? Yeah, I always have that dream, but the reality is definitely somewhat different. So the other thing I wanted to touch base on is obviously the running is very important to you. And I noticed you did get up early this week, I think, to do some crazy exercise. So do you think that you're getting up earlier to do things because you can and you're making the most of the sunshine because of what's happened? Or is this something that might happen sometimes?
The earlier getting up, well, this morning I got up at 5:30 actually, because I could do a boot camp that is organized in Amsterdam, and it starts at 6:28. It's called November Project. It's like a worldwide thing. They organize it at a moment that you can do it before work normally. But this morning I got up very early. Probably I will crash this evening very early as well. But during the evening clock time, I try to avoid but I did watch sometimes, all the evening shows where they invite people to talk about COVID. And I, at a certain point, I kind of felt myself, I tried to, of course, I cannot control any situation, but I tried to, by knowing facts and like kind of hearing experts' opinions, like thinking like, oh, maybe this is going to happen. And then in March, I can do whatever again. But, just as last year, it's also a lot about season influence, about, I don't know, a lot of factors together. That's, of course, in June, like last year as well. It's all very much changing a lot in a very short period. So I tried to avoid the evening shows because they invited only, and they talked about Corona and nothing else. At a certain time, you have to finish Netflix and all the series that you would like to really watch instead of like, just watching something because you have to watch something. So I used to go to bed earlier, and I'm not really a morning person, definitely not in winter. In summer it's easier because it's light outside. And 3 years ago I trained for a marathon, and then it was the summer of 2018. It was really, really warm, so sometimes I had to do a training, but during the day it was way too hot, and in the evening as well. So then I had the habit of going to run before work, which was like at, I don't know, 6 a.m. or something. And I live close to the Amstel River, where you don't feel that you're in the city. It's like a beautiful, like, the Dutch landscape with cows and stuff and mills. That's part.
Tulips.
Yeah, we have had tulips, but not around. This is more South Holland, where I come from. But I've been a tourist in my own country, most definitely as well. Recently, I rented a car to drive to where I come from. I used to peel flower bulbs as a job when I was like 14 or so.
Oh,
wow. Mostly, going. You make different habits temporarily, but now we're allowed to do stuff. But restaurants close at 10. It's only been like 5 days. Before that, terraces closed at 8.
Yes.
8 makes the difference. Then I don't know. So they're doing it very phasely, and
that's really good.
Yeah, it's per end of June we're allowed until midnight. Like, whoa.
And I want to talk about Orange Day Parade. So how was that celebrated? If you were, was it just a daytime thing, or?
Last year there was no celebration. There was what they called stay-at-home day. So so last year, they had like a national toast and something, and some people, they were singing the national anthem, but and there were like video online activities. Officially there were no activities this year, so could be no events and anything, but it was one of the few days that in spring we had sunshine. So I have friends who live in the center at a place where normally all the boats come by. So during the day, I went to a park, but not the park where they had not riots, but they had like, police people moving everybody out of the park.
Oh, did they? Okay.
Yeah, there was some kind of restlessness that broke out, of people throwing bottles and people really, being quite strict with what's called special forces. But we went to a place very much outside of the city during the day, and in the evening I went with my friend who has an apartment, and she kind of DJ'd out of the window, which was really nice. Oh. And so people were walking by, so we did have kind of a celebration, different than normally, but people were outside because, outside is better to be than inside all the time. And I must say, I was with 2 friends who already had Corona, so they were, okay. Friends of mine who didn't want to meet up with people, they stay at home still.
Yeah. So do you know a lot of your friends that have had coronavirus?
I know, and actually I have not been hit myself. My parents and my brother, my direct family has not. I know a few of my sorority friends who've had it, but nobody, just to peel it away, has been really ill. One of the neighbors of my parents ended up in hospital, but she's somewhat older. But most of my friends, the few who had it, they were pretty mildly, so they had some symptoms, but nothing that's of course you're worried that somebody might. For my dad, who has diabetes type 1, we were worried about him, but he's fully vaccinated now, so I did a lot of fast tests when I went to visit them.
Yes, we must talk about the picture of you saying hugging him for the first time in 2 months.
Yeah.
Do you want to tell everyone about that? Because I think it's the most fantastic photo. It really tells
Well,
the story.
I posted it because I saw the World Press photo that actually won a prize, where somebody through like a plastic thing is hugging a person in an elderly home. And last year, in the beginning of June, I hadn't seen my dad for like about 2 months. I had seen my mom one time in between, but we don't live in the same city, and they don't have a car and I don't have a car. So you have to travel by public transport. And back then that was kind of forbidden.
Mm-hmm.
So, and you know, you don't want to take any risk. So at a certain point, they said, you can come over again. And I came over. But then we wanted to, you know, kind of do something, because we kept a distance the rest of the time. But I normally go in the summer, I go to festivals. So I have these festival ponchos for when it rains. And I had seen somewhere on television or something, like somebody wearing a festival poncho, but the other way around. So your face is covered in plastic. And I put on my festival poncho. My dad had like this, I don't know, this plastic screen
Visor thing. Yeah.
Yeah. So I was kind of choking at the same time as hugging him, because I could physically, you know, hug him for the first time again. And yeah, I became very emotional, because I have been away from my parents for a longer time before, like half a year or something. But then you know that you can, if you come home, you can do something. And now if it's kind of against every social convention, and it's against your own, you know, kind of feeling that you shouldn't do it because it's a risk and it's not good. But this way it kind of felt okay to do it. And yeah, it was, I kind of choked at the same time of doing it, and I was teared as well. So my mom made the picture, and yeah, it's, I first didn't want to post it on any social media, but in the end I did yeah, it was kind of funny. A year later now, you know, so it's kind of, I look back on the period now.
Yeah, it was a very tough time, I think, for all of us. Because like you say, suddenly something that you've always relied upon, i.e. a hug from your parent, you couldn't even have that. And and you do travel a lot. Often you travel over Christmas and New Year, stuff like that. Yeah. So you're often going off to the airport. So you're away from your folks a lot. So yeah, it's strange, isn't it, how it's affected us all in slightly different ways. So Amsterdam and the Netherlands is getting, you know, gradually coming out of the lockdown. And you said that kind of jobs-wise, you're now in a much more kind of stable area because of what it is. It's sustainable energy, did you say?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's right. To be explaining without mentioning any company names, I was working for an online bookshop, but they were bought up by an external investment, or by an external party, a publishing house. And they were going to do a reorganization later. But I was hired in January, and just before kind of the first lockdown things happened in March, a few days for the end of my probation time, which was 2 months. I didn't expect anything at all, but my boss called me in, and she said, this is not something I expected, because you're performing well, but because of the fact of Corona, they are going to reorganize now, and everybody who is a temporary contract and they might not need in the future, they are going to cut them as per direct. So she kind of, I was flabbergasted. I was like, whoa, what the heck? This was 2 days before we had to work from home. Everything lockdown happened, everything closed. So a really weird timing. But she kind of negotiated that I could stay another 2 months, because otherwise it would have been really weird. I would have been jobless as per direct. So what I did is I got into online interviewing. So I did the whole interview process with my current job, where I just got a contract prolongation. So that's nice. I did it online. I still haven't met about 80% of my colleagues. I was in the office actually Tuesday, but I met most of my colleagues in 3D or 2D. And sometimes when I see somebody, I'm like, whoa, you're much more taller than I thought. You know, I thought you were like 160 or something, or you're. So it's kind of weird, because some people I've met because they live close and we're going for a walk or something, but the office is becoming gradually more open now, but for a long time it was closed. I went a few times last summer, like literally, but lots of people were on holiday, and I work for quite a big company. So I'm in touch with I'm in 2 teams, and I'm doing online campaigning for sustainable products, so new energy products, which don't have a target group yet. So it's kind of like experimenting a lot, which I love. And it's also part of the discussion about climate change and the energy transition. So it's really nice to work at a place that is very much into the spotlight and where you can really make a difference. So actually, that's the thing that Corona changed for me for the better. I really like the place where I'm at now, just for, the fun purposes of working together. It would be nice to actually sit in the same room and do all your creative processes instead of on a virtual board and doing online post-its, doing it really together with people. But I went to the office on Tuesday and we were allowed to go, a few people. And I had, I went to a terrace with one colleague and we had a beer. So it's gradually going for the better. And we're
but you must, now you must know them quite well, weirdly, without having met them face to face. It's like some kind of straight, I know it's not internet dating, but it is a bit, so you've got to know them so well, but you've never met them.
No, it's kind of, you only, it's kind of like, some people, you speak to them individually quite often, so you get to know them definitely, but communication is definitely more functional. Also, when you're in a group meeting, you have your agenda points, and I tend to be in meetings a lot, sometimes I have like 6 hours of meetings a day. So I'm sitting like now with my ears in and I'm listening all day, and you have to run to the toilet in between. So I'm trying to make a balance. But for example, then I work at my kitchen table. I've got a good desk chair and, a big screen and stuff. But if you go into the office, you have informal chat, you have like talk with people that you might not work together with. So you get to know, I work for a company that has several thousand employees. So you get to know more of the informal way and about the culture. And my studies was social and organizational psychology a long time ago. So I'm still, the most intangible there is the way people work together and the company values and the company culture. And that is less tangible through video communication. And you miss part of the non-verbal stuff that you would normally see in somebody's, eyes, or in an office we walk around now with face masks. So you see, only the eyes. And in video meetings, you don't see mostly of the time. There's you're watching a PowerPoint, and under it are like 8 little rectangles with a face in it, but you miss half of, and I'm quite expressive, so I miss seeing that part of the expression of somebody, really reacting to a presentation or something that is proposed or anything. So I think that's going to be easier.
Yeah. You haven't got any concerns about getting back to the office, or?
No, for me, the sooner the better. And of course, I respect people who don't want to go yet. Lots of my colleagues are not vaccinated yet. Some, though, I don't know. I respect also people who don't want to get vaccinated. I've got a friend who definitely doesn't want to. I'm fine with that as well. Everybody has to decide for themselves. But for me, I had my vaccination not even 48 hours ago, my first one. Didn't have any complaints, so that was fine. But I can imagine and we won't return to the office fully because the new hybrid model will be, I work 5 days a week, will be 2 days max, or 2 days, 3 days max, depending on the amount of days you work, and only for, where you meet people. And I always used to work from home 1 or 2 days, so it won't change a lot, but, creative processes, brainstorm sessions, team meetings where it's about the social aspect as well and about how you work together. That's important to do that together as well in a physical way, I think.
Yeah. So that's really interesting. And then, so it's great. You've now got this, your job is not new anymore, and you're finally starting to meet your colleagues face to face. So it must, when the transition between your old job and this job happened, you said that it was a difficult time on many different levels. Well, no job level, or worrying about not having a job, but also, you live on your own, you're allowed one person around, but you said that you started to write a diary, I saw. So was that something you used to do all the time, or only on special times?
Well, I have, through my whole life, I've always written diaries at certain moments. Sometimes, during my student times, I had more time. I wrote diaries, and I have this big box with old, with all kinds of different books that I used to write in, mostly during traveling in the recent years, because then you have lots of new impressions that, you want to process them in a certain way. And for me, writing used to be a way to do that. I must say one thing also is very nice. Because I travel a lot and I've got 2 cats, I have been renting a room in my house. So I was not entirely living on my own with a flatmate, which was also nice. In the first part of the lockdown, I lived together with a Brazilian girl. And right now I'm renting a room in my house to an English girl, actually, from the UK. So she watches the Great British Bake Off and the sewing contest or something. So
the sewing contest, sewing bee,
sewing bee,
she's getting homesick.
Her parents live in Amsterdam too, so but she moved in recently, but that helped. And mostly as well, I've been doing a few things to kind of, in insecure times, you need a way to, of course, I talk to friends a lot, but online, and meeting people for a walk also helped. I wrote in a diary, so people might not see that, but I had one of the, of those to-do lists. I started with writing a thankful diary. So at a certain point, at the moment, I lost my job, which might sound heavier than it is, but they started reorganizing. So at the moment I heard that, I started writing more than a thankful diary. So it became like a real diary again. I haven't stopped yet. So apparently I still like to, I write less than I used to. So I have less time for it, so to say, but it's also for to-do lists and whatever. But it's a nice way. And then...
do you write in English or Dutch?
Mostly, I think Dutch, but I remember when I was in Australia years ago, I used to write in English most of the time. So it's kind of, it depends what language you're using the most. But here at home, I speak English most of the time. So, but I wasn't really raised bilingual, although my mom's English, but we spoke Dutch at home. But my grandfather, I spoke English as a child. But it's also, I do a lot of mindfulness. So I have this app. And I'm kind of a person who I cannot do, unguided meditation for an hour sitting on a mat and, having my thoughts go by. So what I did was I have this app called Calm. I don't know if I'm allowed to make any publicity. I don't think. But anyway, I have this app. It's nice. And it has a lot of guided meditations, but also very short ones, like 10-minute ones, sleep stories, whatever. So very different 7-day things where every day you have a different theme or something. So it's nice. I do them often, just before I go to bed, kind of to wind down the end of the day or at the beginning of the day, or sometimes in between meetings. When I have 3 minutes, there's like this 3-minute meditation. And
that's good.
That's very nice. And I think it's really worth it because, I do yoga sometimes at the yoga mat as well. When I used to have desk chair, which was kind of, not very well at the beginning. I bought a new one recently, but I had shoulder problems because I don't have space in my house to put another real desk. So I have my kitchen table, but that's not extendable in height. So I did yoga by a YouTube channel, and running, of course, to get your mind off of things and out of your head where you have been all day talking to a screen. And the thing is, with working from home, sometimes you start to make more hours working harder because you have less interaction with people. Plus, the closing your laptop is not a thing you do before you go home because you're already home. So that's why I'm so happy to be able to go to the office again sometimes. So I can actually, at the end of the working day, I can say, now I'm finished. I close my laptop, put it in my bag, and then I leave the building. I cycle home. Goodbye work for the day. So having like a physical, I even rented an office for a month. In November, I rented an office just to be able to go to another place. They also closed down in the end, but to be able to go to another place physically for doing my job. And in the meantime, I use my lunch breaks to go running. I run with my running crew since shortly again, Running Junkies. I think there's also one in London that I
haven't heard of it, but I'll definitely have a look. And the other thing I wanted to talk to you about was it just sounds like you guys are much more sustainable in the sense that you don't have a car, but your parents don't have a car either, and they're not in Amsterdam. So is that quite normal? Because
no, No, my parents are an exception. I do have my driver's license. My parents don't. But they're an exception. Every household in the Netherlands has a car. In the city, however, because parking fees in front of my door is €6 an hour, and a parking permit is quite expensive. You need to wait for a long time, and the question is it worth it? So I have a subscription to Green Wheels, which is kind of rent a car by the hour. You pay for the petrol and for using it per hour. So I do use that sometimes, but my parents not having a driver's license is an exemption. That's definitely not normal.
I just wanted to check that, because then I think that our car family is looking pretty a polluting car family.
Well, I might want to have a car in the future, but for now I'm okay with, if you work from home mostly, I cannot even, if I would want to, my work is like 6 kilometers from my house. So, that's, the only thing is, when you're visiting friends who live in a small village, as you might as well have in UK when you want to visit somebody from London going to, I don't know, Surrey or something, then the public transport in Holland is okay. But the thing is, you end up having to change trains, metros, buses 4 times. And by car, you can be there in 3/4 of an hour. So I like to have my independence of being able to rent a car at least.
Okay, yeah.
Like share a car.
Or share a car, exactly. So I wanted to ask, so are you worried about after the summer when the nights get longer again, and is there anything you're worried about related to the pandemic, or do you just see it now as smoothly kind of coming out?
I kind of course there are people saying now, we still have like a law being effective until the 1st of September. So that means we still have to listen to what the government says about keeping a distance. Now, of course, washing your hands and stuff, that's normal. But they allow what we're allowed to do, and some things aren't advised. But for example, now you can have 4 visitors at home, and, there's like what you have planned for the 21st of June. We don't have a date for that yet. So they might say it might be September, but some people who are afraid, or who are maybe, I'm kind of, now the sun is shining, we're allowed more things, so I'm on the positive side. I don't want to think back that we're going in September, that we're going back to lockdowns again, shops closed, everything closed, waiting in a whole winter again. No, because we've got vaccinations right now, and it started slow in the Netherlands. We were the last country in Europe to start. But it's gradually progressing now. They're starting on people almost in their 20s now. So in their 30s there now. But pretty soon, it's going to be a certain part of the population will have had at least their first jab, as you call it, jabs in the UK, I believe.
Yeah.
And after the summer in September, everybody who wants to have had 2 will have had 2. So I do believe that they will protect us from most of the variants that have been going around now. And I don't believe I might be, if they want to be really cautious and they want to wait until winter's over I would really be disappointed if they would prolong the 1.5 meters, which does make a difference in being able to go to a party with friends, although of course there's a difference now between official rulings and what people do. I must say I have maybe not always very strictly stuck to the rules, but I haven't been to any party or anything, no COVID party, no nothing. But now pretty soon I have a first invitation to a place where there will be more than 4 people. So we will be with more than 4 people, but outside on a rooftop terrace. Well, it's a dress-up party. I'm going to put on my high heels again because I've not wore high heels for a very long time. And, it's nice to have things to look forward again. So in summer, okay with that. And I have my birthday in October, so I hope this year I can actually celebrate it, in a good way, and not having to say to people, sorry, you cannot come because I cannot keep more than 6 people in my house, or 12 or whatever within the distance rules. So if people want to decide they want to stay home all the time, of course, everybody is entitled to keep their own rules. But I do think that the government, I hope so at least, won't be overcautious and keep, just in case laws and rules and regulations until 2022. That would be, well, unless something breaks out, but I'm a positive person, I'm not thinking about, I don't know, whatever Congolese version might come, or EDF, whatever they're calling it now. So, no, I'm not thinking about October lockdown again. I don't believe so.
Good. And I hope you get to celebrate your birthday as well. I know how this year, my birthday was at the end of April, and last year I didn't celebrate it with my family, but this year I did. And I gave my little niece such a hug. I screamed with joy like a 9-year-old. My sister was looking on in utter horror and embarrassment, but we screamed together with joy. We were so excited to just hug each other, give each other a good squeeze. It was fantastic. So, one last question for you. If you could go back to the beginning of the pandemic, what advice would you give yourself?
Whew, that's a question I don't have one answer that comes straight to mind, but
I give you one. Go surfing. Go surfing.
Yeah, well, I took that advice. If you might have given that to me to the beginning of the pandemic, I actually went surfing as well last year in the summer, because I went to Portugal at the end of summer last year. So I have been surfing during the pandemic twice. So I must say I took your advice and I took it seriously.
Yeah, good. Well, I mean, it's interesting because I guess I haven't left England, I want to say, but maybe I have been to Wales.
Are you?
Possibly.
But you are allowed to travel now, aren't you?
Yeah, no, we are. But I was just thinking about it, that I didn't go to Scotland last year. So I'm going to Scotland in September, hopefully. So I don't think I went to Wales. So I've basically been in England since last March. So over a year. So this for me is like huge, because I haven't traveled anywhere. So
plan a trip. That would be my advice to you. Plan a trip, because you're now allowed to.
I need to plan a trip, but I have been surfing in the UK. So that's in England. So yeah, that's okay. I've done the surfing bit, but I think it's time. It's time, Thessa. I want to say thank you
to yourself. Yeah, I mean, take your own advice, I would say.
Yeah, I need to take my own advice. Yeah, I need to get on a ferry or a plane and just do it. Yeah. I just want to say thank you so much for joining me on today's podcast. It's great to hear about what's been happening in Amsterdam, and it certainly wasn't as easy as I thought it was when I saw pictures of you having a wonderful time on holiday.
I don't put everything on Instagram.
No, obviously. But thank you so much, and I hope that we can go surfing again together soon, and one day we'll be in Morocco, having a good time.
Closed, but I still follow Defrost and Tagazout online, so I've been there 4 times. I want to go back a 5th time, most definitely.
Yeah, exactly, and I definitely want to go back to Tagazout. So Thessa, thank you so much. Take care and enjoy the summer, and I wish you a huge October birthday celebration.
For you the same, but just a celebration of the summer then, and April next year, making up for 2 years of COVID.
Yeah, exactly. We deserve it. Thank you so much. Take care. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.